Today we'll be giving a gameplay overview and review of the game Barrage Battle.
Duck!
I'm ready to cast some spells and throw some arrows.
Flying dice!
Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode with To Die For Games. I'm Tracy, the gaming maven.
And I'm Stephane, the games teacher.
And today we're looking at Barrage Battle. But before we get to that, let's talk about maybe setup, components, trying to see what all that's about. Click on a timestamp below.
If you like what you see, leave us a comment, let us know how we're doing, and subscribe to the channel to be notified when we post new content.
And with that, we're gonna set up our battle lines and get ready for a rumble. In Barrage Battle, it's player versus player, trying to keep your king safe and taking your archers and your wizards and battling them against each other. But be careful, because if your king catches an arrow, well, you're done for.
So here we have the components for Barrage Battle. We have our two-player kits, which include a king, a wizard, and a castle for each of the two players. Various health and damage markers. We have coin tokens, mana crystal tokens, the big deck of Barrage Battle cards, and 4 of each of 4 different types of dice, as well as this massive, gigantic game board. So to start with, place the game board in the middle of the table. Each player will take the 3 cards for their start, which is the king, the wizard, and the castle. The castle must be played in the first 2 rows of each player's side of the board. And the king and wizard can be placed anywhere in the player's side. Then each player will be dealt 10 battle barrage cards from the deck, and then they'll be ready to start. In Barrage Battle, each player's turn is comprised of 6 phases. The first is the declaration phase, where each player will declare either peace and gain 5 gold, 3 movement, and 0 actions. Engagement, in which case the player will get 3 gold, 3 moves, and 3 actions. Or war, in which case the player will get 0 gold, 3 moves, and 5 actions. The second phase is the upkeep phase, during which players will get gold and mana based on their declaration and whether or not their wizard is still in play. So if I declared peace, I would earn 5 gold from the supply. And because my wizard is still in the field and not dead, I would earn 1 mana crystal from the supply and add it to my player side. The third phase is the deployment phase. This is where players can play cards from their hand to the battlefield. Cards, typically unit cards, have a cost in gold coins, which is this black circle number here. In this case, this swordsman has a cost of 2 gold. So I could play that swordsman adjacent to a structure that I have. So in this case, my structure is my castle card, and I can play the swordsman next to the castle card for a cost of 2 gold. I can continue deploying other units as long as I have resources to spend. The fourth phase is the movement phase, and each player will have 3 movements per turn. Now 3 movements means that they can move 3 unit cards, their full movement, up to their full movement each. So each unit card has a move rating that tells how many spaces it can move, but also which directions it can move into. So I will bring the wizard up in for a closer view. So the wizard can move in any direction, including diagonals. Most units can only move orthogonally, but the wizard can move diagonals, which is indicated by this little symbol here on the card. And in this case, the wizard can move a range of 1, so he can move a single space in any direction. So I'm going to have him move forward. As another move, I can have my king move. Again, he moves in any direction. He's going to move behind the castle wall to be protected. And then I can have my swordsman move forward as well. So those would be my 3 moves during the movement phase. Phase 5 is the action phase, where players can take a number of actions depending on their declaration value in the declaration phase. So if this player declared war, one action can be used to cast a spell if the wizard in question has sufficient mana. In this case, this spell costs 2 mana in order to cast the spell, and this is a strength spell, so they can cast that, spend the 2 mana back to the supply, and add 2 hit points to a unit on their side. So this one's going to give this archer 2 additional hit points above and beyond their normal value, making them tougher and harder to kill. Another action can be used, or an action can also be used to resolve an attack action. In this case, this archer would like to attack forward, and the way it works for archers is archers have a range attack. The range attack is 2 4-sided dice, so we can take the 2 4-sided dice. Now the player who is attacking takes the dice in hand, they throw them onto the board, they cannot pass the archer's row during the throw. And if the dice end up on any card, then that card would take damage. And basically the wizard here, the card got moved, but the dice didn't actually finish on the wizard, and so the wizard would not suffer damage for that attack. In addition, 2 actions may be used to shuffle any number of cards from your hand, return them to the main deck. So if this player wanted to take 3 cards, return them to the bottom of the main deck or the discard pile, they would take 3 additional cards from the deck, back to their hand. The 6th and final phase in a player's turn is the end phase, in which players will look at their hand and either draw up to 10 cards or discard down to 10 cards if they have more than 10. So in this case, this player has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cards. So they would have to draw 1 additional card to bring their hand back up to 10. Now, to even things out a little bit, the first and second turns are handled slightly differently. The first player will only take 3 gold coins from the supply and will skip his or her declaration and action phases. In addition, the player will then accumulate mana if their wizard is still in play. And they can make up to 3 movements with their unit cards. The second player to play may make a declaration and receive the corresponding gold and mana, but they must skip their action phase. All the remaining turns follow the 6 phases discussed before. Gameplay proceeds until one player eliminates another player's king, at which point the player with the king remaining wins the game.
And now we're ready to give our review of Barrage Battle. So Stephane, what do you think?
I had a bit of fun with this game. I only had one major gripe, and I'll talk about that during game mechanics. But overall, I actually somewhat enjoyed this game. I was surprised.
I liked it. It's again, I'll probably talk about game mechanics. I think I have the same gripe, but yeah, it was a good game. I think this would be a really good game with kids.
Agreed.
The throwing the dice, all the wonderful stuff, which we'll talk about, but great game for family to play with kids.
Agreed.
So,
yeah.
So let's talk about art and theme.
The card art is pretty good. The version we have, I'm not sure if it's the final published version or not.
Yes.
The art was a little dark on some of the cards. It was a little hard to distinguish some of the characteristics of the artwork, but overall it was effective for what it was trying to portray. So,
yeah, like I guess it was where it was like move and stuff. Like the move number was a little difficult to see and stuff like that. But I did like the art. You need a big table for this game.
It's a big board.
This is actually more about components, but I guess because they wanted the art on the cards to show, you needed the cards to be like full card size. So the actual battlefield had to be really big in order to be able to fit those cards. So thematically, you know, you're throwing dice, which kind of make you feel like you're attacking the person by throwing stuff at them, which you got to be careful with kids. They might just, you know, poke an eye out. But I thought thematically that was kind of cool. So components.
The cardstock in this is pretty good. The board is really thick, really large.
Yeah.
The dice are fairly standard, you know, role-playing dice, although there is the ones they use for the spears and the javelins that are a different shape of die. I've seen that shape of die in some other games. I forget what that type of die is called. But
Yeah, it's like spiral shaped. I think it's six-sided.
It is six-sided.
Yeah. So we were accidentally using the six-sided cubic die instead of those, till we realized, oh,
we're supposed to use the other dice.
Just throw it like a javelin, you know, like whoosh, whoosh. So yeah, the components, like you said, the only thing with the components for me, and this is mostly as a reviewer trying to record it, the board was so shiny. It was like a mirror. So for us, it was tricky trying to get the lighting just right. But for the average Joe, obviously that's not going to be an issue. The cards tended, because it was so shiny, it meant it was smooth. So it meant they slid a little bit.
The cards slid quite a bit on the board.
But again, not a big deal. Didn't detract from the gameplay. Just it was definitely something I noticed. So game mechanics.
So overall, the game mechanics I think worked well. It's basically a dexterity game with some strategy based on the card placement and things like that. The thing the dexterity portion of it I actually quite enjoyed until, well, one of our playthroughs we were playing and then randomly I tossed a D4 at Tracy's side of the board from an archer, because the archers use four-sided dice as their projectiles, and it just happened to hit her king, who has 1 hit point, and died.
Yeah.
Because her king wasn't hidden behind the castle.
Now, to be fair, all game he wasn't hidden, so it was rather impressive that he stayed alive that long.
Sure.
So, yeah.
For me, you know, you're strategizing, and if you don't have your king holed up in the castle, it's a random luck of the toss of the dice, and he could die with one little arrow, right? So that seemed a little harsh, and I was the victor in that one. I mean, I won the game, and I still found it a little harsh. So for me, that was my only complaint.
My king took an arrow to the heart.
Yeah.
For me, it was that it could, like, for us, it wasn't bad. It was starting to get to the point that, like, that particular playthrough was starting to get to the point where I was like, is this ever going to end? Because it was kind of a back and forth. I would kill his guys, and neither of us really got close enough to do like a melee attack on the king. It was mostly distance attacks on the king. So I found this game, depending upon what happened, it could take a fairly long time. I don't know if there'd be a way to fix that, as in, you know, kill the king with a certain number of rounds, or count how many kills you made, or another game end condition might really benefit this game.
There's definitely some house rules you could incorporate there.
Exactly. Find something to just to change, because like I said, this game could take way longer, depending on if you get a really good way to defend your king, and you can't kill him by the random luck of the dice throw. He's actually well protected, then could take hours. But maybe, I guess, similar to a lot of war games, just like war games, they tend to take a long time. This one isn't much different, I guess, in that regards. So with that, similar games.
In the way that the units are placed out on the map and how they interact with each other, a little bit like Days of Wonder's Memoir 44, which is a World War II themed game. But you have, you know, tokens with different abilities, different strengths out on the board, and you kind of move them in reaction to how your opponent moves their tokens around. So for me, it had a little bit of a similar feel to it, to that game.
For me, I picked a kind of the opposite end, in the sense of not necessarily simpler, because this game isn't simpler, but the mechanics are easier to pick up. Strategy, not so much. Is Battle Line. So Battle Line is a GMT game, and it's a two-player game. And you have cards in the middle that you're trying to beat, and you're trying to battle, and you're putting cards down. More poker style matching of cards versus direct competition of you throwing dice, but it's the general trying to out-strategize a person on a particular spot to conquer, in this case, a card, or defeat enemies and stuff like that. So that would be my pick. So general opinion overall.
you know, I was really enjoying the game until that last arrow pierced her king's heart, and I'm like, so it's really just it's down to pure sheer luck. And if the game had some other end game conditions where a more strategic player could, you know, work towards a final end game that way, I think it would appeal to me more. But for what it is, I think it's a good. I hate to say little game because it's not very little. It's actually quite large. It's a decent game with some interesting mechanics. Again, as you said earlier, I think it would appeal to maybe a younger audience, and as long as they're not too. You know, putting too much power into their dice throws. Hopefully no components get lost across the room. Yeah.
So yeah, I'll give it a 1 thumb up. I could give you 1 or 2 thumbs up in this regard because this game actually is a solid game. It's got a lot going for it. Not my style of game, and I do like some war games. Anyone who likes a direct 2-person confrontation game is going to enjoy this game for sure. If you like that aspect, and it has that kind of fantasy. You know, building up your guys in certain spots and moving them, you know, strategically. So if you like games like chess or any of those other strategic, abstract games, this would probably appeal to you too, based on where you have to play your cards that moves them and stuff like that. So it's a good game for those who like that style, for sure. And with that, we'll see you next time. Bye. Follow us on social media.